bring your attention to another story that happened over the weekend. That is the small rocket startup Vector announcing it's pausing operations after a, quote, significant change in financing, surprising both the industry and venture capital community. CEO Jim Cantrell, who's actually been on our air in the past, has left, and his co-founder, John Garvey, has stepped in to try to salvage the startup. The company also laying off a majority of its workers. This is significant because Vector has been viewed as an early forerunner in the emerging small sat launch market, even though its rocket has yet to reach orbit. It actually received its first Air Force contract just last week, so it's unclear what happens to that now as well. But since its founding in 2016, Vector had raised about $100 million from investors, including Codem Growth Partners, Sequoia Capital, Lightspeed, Shasta Ventures, and Morgan Stanley Alternative Investment Partners. So what I'm hearing now, guys, is that Vector's Series C investor pulled out. But this really speaks to how new and in many ways untested this commercial space sector really is. As the saying goes, space is hard, but investing in it can be hard too. And as we know, especially with some of those investor names that I just listed off, this has been an area that has been starting to get increased interest and increased money from the venture capital community and other types of investors. So it's one to watch.
Are these essentially hardware companies in a new era? Because I'm used to sort of the playbook for flameouts in Silicon Valley hardware. We saw them in MP3 players, in handheld computers, things like that. There was a sort of inventory and kind of component issue that they could get into, and then things just blow up. Is there that kind of playbook yet for space?
I think it's what you're seeing start to materialize, and I know you've heard me say it like a million times on this show, but in many ways I sort of see the space sector as the next internet and kind of going through those same kind of growth patterns and trials and tribulations that we arguably saw in the 90s. Not saying that there's some sort of bubble here, but for example, when you look at small sat launch industry, there's more than 100 companies competing in this arena. Only one of them's actually made orbit, has gone to orbit so far. So there's a lot of competition, not necessarily as much demand yet, and you're going to see winners and losers, and I think this is an example of that. And yes, it's space hardware. That is absolutely what we're talking about here.